All right, I'm going to talk about why Steely Dan is my favorite band and why I don't want to be in a band and why Steely Dan really isn't a band. It's two dudes. They started out as two dudes. They ended up that way. What it is now is Donald Fagen and associated musicians using the name Steely Dan, as agreed to in the contract between him and Walter Becker. I know there's a dispute about that, but if they had an agreement, they had an agreement. The idea was if anybody quits or dies or whatever, that whoever's left is the band. So, and it's up to them. So that's his. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but that's what he did. Donald Fagen did. But Steely Dan started out as two guys from the East Coast who moved to LA and got a job at a record company, kind of like being musicians. As I understand it, they're like standby musicians. Then they went, hey, we can bring our friends from the East Coast and form a band. And they did. And it worked out for a couple years. And then they saw the dark underbelly of the music scene and all the drugs and the sex. And it's not like they didn't like drugs or sex. It's just like, that's not life, I mean, it's a part of life, but it isn't life, And I think Donald had some troubles that I can understand. It made him have stage fright. I don't have stage fright. I've played in front of people without a problem. I just don't like it. Like, I don't get nervous, but it's just boring to set all up and the whole thing. Like, I just can't imagine being in a touring band. It would be like hell. Making music is great, but like having to play it over and over for people. Like, I understand, Some people get off on it. These guys were about making the track itself different. And they made incredible music. And the more important thing is not being in a band. Like, I've been in a few bands that, like, they weren't big, but they were trying to. And they took it way too seriously. And it was like, everything's about the band. And it's like, is everything about your job? It's just, yeah. So, but they did put everything into the music. Everything. And I mean their heart and soul into making good music. And it's good. Most people, particularly my age or younger, look at this stuff and think it's boomer music. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. Once I saw the documentary, The Making of Aja, I got it. And I already liked Steely Dan before that, but then they became my favorite band. They supplanted, I don't know what my favorite band was. Like, when my first favorite band was Iron Maiden, then I didn't have any favorite bands. I liked a bunch of different techno, rap, like I always did. But then I discovered Steely Dan, like about 5-6 years ago. And they changed my life. They made me want to make music again. They made me think about music again. They made me tune my ear again. I'm not a musician in terms of notes and scales and shit, but I'm a drummer. I know feel. I know certain things. I like producing. I like recording people. They're good. Yeah, so if you're curious, yeah, Peg. Peg is one of my favorite. It's a song about, well, they don't tell you that's another thing about, they don't like to tell you what their songs are about, but people figured it out. Like, Deacon Blues and Peg are pretty easy to figure out, but some of their songs, what are the lyrics about? What are the lyrics about? We can't tell you. It's for you. And then Walter Becker goes, that's fascism! It made me laugh so hard. It's like, we can't tell you what the lyrics are about because it's like, it's for you. Like, the song hits you. You make your own meaning up. You make it about you. That's our job, is to make it. Your job is to enjoy it and make the song what you want it to be. They're very obscure sometimes. Sometimes the lyrics are pretty obvious, but I think with Peg it's kind of obvious. Let's see. Deacon Blues. Black Cow is pretty obscure. I love Black Cow. Love the drummer on it. And then, of course, that fucking drum solo that Steve Gadd did, I'll never top. I'll never do. That guy's a drum god. Like, a song with 2 drum solos in the song. And it doesn't even sound like that's happening. And the song doesn't, I mean, you don't even, yeah, Aja, the song, the title track of Aja. But yeah, they're my favorite band because they're not a band, and I don't want to be in a band ever.